All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome to the first Soft and Life Skill series of 2023. I am Karina Dice. I was the campus alumni officer for Mona. I am now the special projects assistant to the director of alumni relations. All right. So most of you know me. You also know our presenter tonight, Stacia Mari. She's one of our resident Soft and Life Skill series presenters, and we're happy to have her. So welcome, Stacia. Welcome, everyone. I hope you have your pen and your papers ready because she's going to be sharing a wealth of knowledge, something that will help us in our personal and professional lives. And so before we jump into it, just to get out some housekeeping rules, just to let you know that the meeting is being recorded, as you will see on your screen. Also, the recording will be archived by our YouTube channel. So if you're in video or speech, then it will be included in this recording. So just to let you know that. Also, you'll be able to access the recording possibly within 2 to 3 days by the end of the week, most times by our YouTube channel, Give Me Alumni Online. All right. So let me know in the chat if you're hearing me, where you're calling from or where you're joining us from, what you're looking forward to learning in this webinar. I don't know if you've joined the previous webinars that we had last year and the year before that for Be the CEO of your household. But if you have, we'd like to know if you've learned anything, if you've implemented anything in your day-to-day, and if you have any advice going forward in terms of what you've been doing to get your finances on track to be financially literate and to be financially well. Now, as mentioned before, Stacia Morris is one of our resident facilitators. She is a UAKville graduate. She has a bachelor's from the University of West Indies. She is the author of Teen Money 101 and founder of Your Life Trek. She holds a post-MBA certificate in accounting, an MBA from Pace University in New York, and she was a college track star at the Cable campus. So that's a fun fact. All right. So Stacia also holds financial and insurance certifications and currently works as a financial advisor. Her diverse professional background includes global leasing, finance, consulting, information technology strategy, business intelligence, and complex project management for Fortune 500 companies. All right, so Mari spent majority of her corporate career at IBM Corporation in a variety of roles. Her work and travels to the Latin American countries are among her most favorite IBM experiences. So we see that Stacia has a wealth of experience, a wealth of knowledge, and she's here to share that with us. So I hope you guys are ready. Thank you for joining us from Trinidad. I'm seeing Trinidad, I'm seeing Jamaica. Celia saying that she was at the last webinar. I'm seeing St. Lucia, Grenada, AUA. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And Narisha Roden-Ropa is saying that she's looking forward to good guidance to rid this financial wave after the pandemic. And so I'm sure is everyone. So without further ado, Stacia, over to you. Everyone, please enjoy. Ask your questions in the chat. After the presentation, we'll have a Q&A. You can also ask questions there. Be free to raise your hands, open your mics, turn on your cameras, whatever necessary. We're here to facilitate you. Looking forward to a good webinar. Over to you, Stacia.
Okay, thank you very much, Karina. As you said, I've been on your stage for, this is the 12th time. Over the last 2 years, I've been talking my head off with the University of West Indies. So I love giving back. And as you guys have seen, I've done a lot of stuff and just have a lot of awareness, depth of experience, and I'm always sharing. So welcome tonight, everybody. Tonight's agenda. We're gonna review 1 year after we had a full session workshop in 2022. And in that workshop, the objective was to take control of your financial life and to increase your confidence in managing your finances. So I'm gonna go a bit through what we did last year. Then I'm gonna share some lessons learned. And the main part of tonight is to hear from you. It's the dialogue section. So I may talk for about 30 minutes and then we can dialogue for another 30. I hope you have lots of questions so that we can just fill up the time talking about what's happening in your lives. And if you don't have enough questions, I'm challenging you to have questions. But if you don't have, Karina has some polls. So as I said, we had a lovely time last year, just going through the four-week section. So I'm gonna have a poll. Karina is gonna do the first poll. We wanna see how many people came to last year's session. So the question is, have you previously attended a CEO of your household workshop? Oh, so we have mostly new people. Okay, that's good. That's really good. Thank you very much for being here tonight. So I would back up and I would go back to some stuff that we talked about so that, okay, we've shared the results and Karina is going to stop sharing. So 76% said you have never been in a CEO presentation and 24 has been. So, okay. Thanks very much, Karina, for that, for sharing that poll. So I know we have that poll, so I know where to go in depth, where to just slide stuff over. So last year, the objective was to be the CEO of your household, as I said, take control of your financial life and increase your confidence. When we started last year, we went over 3 main problems. And I'm going to go over those problems today because we featured the problems and then we looked at how we would solve those problems through financial literacy. So the 3 main problems, the first one is that the United Nations says that financial literacy can eliminate 9 of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And the biggest one, and we look at, is elimination of poverty. Also achieving gender equality, and that 2/3 of adults worldwide remain financially illiterate. And women continue to trail men in financial decision making. Now, when I speak to a women's group, women only, they make the most financial decisions, and a lot of women are head of households, and we go through statistics and show the women where they fit head of households, but yet still they're financially illiterate, but they make the financial decisions. So we see that it doesn't equate. You're making the most financial decisions, but yet still you're financially illiterate. That's most of the women. So what we do on this platform is to erase that financial literacy and help to increase financial literacy. The second problem has been defined as a strong link between financial literacy and financial wellness among African Americans. And it said that if you're financially literate, you plan and save for retirement, you have non-retirement savings, and you could better manage your debt, and you're less likely to be financially fragile. Now, most of us have been financially fragile during the last 3 years, during the pandemic. But this statement is saying if you are financially literate and financially well, then you could withstand things like the pandemic. That's the second problem. The third problem we feature here is the wealth gap, the gap between Black and white. And it says that a white family typically has 10 times greater wealth than a Black family. And that's because most of us don't concentrate on wealth. We concentrate on income and expenses and literally kind of just float, and we don't concentrate on building wealth. We don't concentrate on that cash and assets that's left over after we've spent and paid our expenses. So those are the 3 problems: financial illiteracy, the wealth gap, and we are less fragile. We did 4 workshop sessions. And those of you who weren't there, well, maybe at the end, I have another poll which said, should we continue and should we do the 4 sessions that we did last year? So I want you to listen to what we did during the 4 sessions in our attempt to eliminate financial illiteracy. In the first session, we made the case for financial literacy, which I just did. We talked about financial literacy versus financial wellness. Then I talked about breaking the vicious cycle of poverty. I gave a story about a mentee, somebody I've mentored for 20 years. We talked about the CEO of your household, and then I spoke about my personal story. And my personal story was really a lot of things I'm teaching you tonight. I had a master's degree, MBA, I had a postmaster's in accounting, I worked for a big company, I did their income and expense and their asset management, etc. And I never applied that to myself. So my challenge as I teach and talk to everybody is, let's apply these things, let's bring these things home. Okay, in session 2, we did income and expense and cash flow, very, very important. We talked about savings and we talked about credit cards and the impact of having too much credit. In session 3, we talked about budget and planning and balance sheet. And in every session, we reviewed the previous sessions. Session 4, we ended with reviewing of all the previous sessions, investments, and we wrapped up. And during this time, what we did, we began a playbook. Before the beginning of every session, I'd send you out parts of the playbook. Now, I didn't want to give you the whole playbook at one time because I know I was going to lose people if I say, here's the playbook, fill it out. So what we did, we filled out stuff weekly, and the sessions were really a discussion session. So hopefully you'd say, if you want to have this back again, and I love working with Karina, love working with UWI, so we can see about that. So the main lessons were financial literacy versus financial wellness and making financial wellness a habit. So tonight we're going to look at everybody who were here before or everybody on the platform tonight and understand, did you make financial wellness a habit? How can you make financial wellness a habit? As I said before, we discussed income and expense, credit management, balance sheet, budgeting and planning, personal experiences, and then, as usual, a call to action. It's no sense coming and learning stuff without acting on it, especially when we look at those problems, which are big problems. What is financial wellness? Financial wellness is the access to financial resources when needed. The ability to fund your life, pay your way, fund your lifestyle, food, housing, transportation, health. Your ability to save and have an emergency fund. And we stress emergency funds because it said you should have 6 to 9 months emergency fund. But during this pandemic, I think we are going into like a 3rd year, or we definitely had 2 full years. We definitely had 24 months of a pandemic. How many people can withstand or have emergency funding for 24 months? Not many of us. You have the ability to plan and save for your future, college funding, house, retirement, etc. And very important, the ability to make educated financial decisions. That's financial wellness. Who is a chief executive officer? Now, when we did the first course, when I did the first class with UWI, the first seminar, I had a different name for this. And then as we evolved, the name changed. It became the CEO of your finances or CEO of your household. I didn't make it CFO because the CEO has the ultimate decision-making powers. So what does the CEO do? The CEO manages an organization. In your case, I hope you're managing your household. He or she understands and manages income and expense, cash flow, savings, investment, credit management, budget and planning, balance sheet, wealth management. Anybody who is in finance or accounting on this platform tonight, those are the things you do at work. As I say, bring it home. And my challenge was then, and still is, be the CEO of your household. Tips, these were tips from last year, still tips. Pay off debt, give up stuff, save, cut costs, declare no spending periods, use what you have, buy in bulk, budget, manage credit, plan, set attainable goals, and monitor your plans continuously. I hope you do this. My call to action then, and will be when we're done here tonight, is to control your financial wellness. Be intentional and manage. Manage that cash flow, what comes in, what goes out. Build a budget, review it regularly. Save, manage credit, and what a lot of us don't have, I never had this, were regular family conversations. Don't surprise or shock your children when there are financial emergencies. Start to talk to them about finances before there's an emergency. Then I asked for 10 commitments, which were be financially literate and financially well, develop a playbook. We had done the playbook over the period of the 4 weeks, and there were really some really great discussions, and write it down. You can't keep it in your head. If you keep it in your head, it's not going to be done. So write it down, quantify your goals, put numbers. Develop the roadmap. After the playbook, I'd show you the roadmap. I think that's one of the leftovers I kept in this presentation. As I say, budget, save consistently, prioritize spending. What do you spend on? What's important to you? What do you spend on? Manage your credit, build wealth, something we don't do. Understand financial concepts and instruments, and invest early. After those commitments, I just reviewed what we've done in last year very quickly. There's another poll coming up. And the poll question is, which process have you implemented? Cash flow management, credit management, budget process, or wealth accumulation? Okay, looks like we are almost split in the first three, which is great. Cash flow management right now has 44%. Credit management, great, 53%. A budget process, 52. Something is wrong because we're adding up to more than 100% here. So let me wait for the numbers to settle. So still not settled, but anyhow, if you look at the graph on the floor, the bottom, the number 4 out of 4 is wealth accumulation. So it seems that we need to focus some more on wealth accumulation. We have cash flow management, credit management, and budget process. Really great. So applause for everybody. Well, we need to get that number up on wealth accumulation. Thank you very much, Karina. So let's stop the poll. The poll is done. Let's continue. Lessons learned. So I just told you the commitments, and we just saw that we implemented cash flow management, credit management, budget process, and wealth accumulation is coming. It's on there, so that's good. So I'm going to give you an example of a lesson learned. 2023, where are you? I want to introduce a lady. Her name is Junie Maxwell. Junie sent a note back to UWI after she was invited to this talk tonight, and she wanted to know if we are doing the same thing that we did last year, and she was told we're going to do something a bit different. It's really a dialogue. And she can't be here tonight. I invited her to come on and talk about what she had done. She can't be here, and I'll tell you why she can't be here, but I want to read some of what she said. Okay, this is Junie Maxwell in all her UWI gown for graduation. So this is what Junie said. She is saying, and I highlighted what I'm going to read, that she's debt-free as of last month. So she definitely implemented that credit management. And she was able, after the class, to differentiate between wants and needs. And she was able to invest in a business, and she can sleep better at nights. She never looked at running a home as a business, but at the end of the session, she said, use the word comparison. She admits that the amount of money she allocated for pleasure was minimal at this time, but today she can indulge in some pleasurable activities. So where is Junie tonight? She is actually she lives in the UK. She's actually in Wales on vacation, so she can indulge in those pleasurable activities that she said she couldn't before. So she lives in England on a planned vacation road trip. The actions she took. She constructed the downstairs of her house. She made 2 single apartments to rent. She sacrificed to exclude some fun activities, and she said that it's worth it. So this is Junie's house that she adjusted. So Karina, I know you haven't seen this, but I wanted to keep this as a surprise to you that I connected with her. She couldn't be on the platform tonight, so she shared pictures with me. So it works. I hope everybody is nodding their head that being financially sound and financially literate and making it a habit, it works. So just shake your head with me as I shake my head, okay? So I want us to go into dialogue. And as we go through dialogue, actually, before we go to dialogue, I'll go through a map with you. Had I realized we would have more new people than who had been here before, I would have kept the steps. But I want to go through a map with you. So we would skip these polls. I want to go through this flow with you. And I call it a financial wellness roadmap. And actually, I created this roadmap. I looked for it. I couldn't find it, but I hope everybody on the platform, I hope we have brave people on the platforms. When you want something, you can't find it, then go make it, go do it. So I want to take some time right now to walk through what we did last year. I have this built up in stages. I didn't include it here, and I don't want to switch presentations. So I just want to walk you through it. So let's look at the top. This is where we usually start. Understanding your income and your sources of income. And most of all, understand your expenses. Now, I know most of us who have salaried positions or whatever, whether we are entrepreneurs or we work for a company, we know our income. I think about 90% or more of everybody knows their income. What we don't have a handle on a lot is our expenses. So my challenge usually is write down everything that you spend money on monthly. And you can do it by, if you get paid weekly, write it down weekly, bi-weekly if you get paid bi-weekly. I know in the Caribbean, it used to be monthly payments. I don't know if it's still monthly, but write it down by your pay periods and monitor it. So from income and expense, we move to cash flow at the top. What comes in and what goes out. So at the end of looking at your cash flow, you can see if you're in a surplus position or in a deficit position. If you're in a surplus position, that goes towards savings, and we're going to break down savings. So you'd save for emergencies, retirement, education, investments, and other. Let's go back to cash flow. Savings, the surplus is positive, but a lot of times people are in a deficit position. And what do we do when we're in a deficit position? And I have this colored in red. We use our savings. We dip into our savings. We get part-time jobs, or we dip into credit. We use the credit cards, which is not a good thing. It's a good thing to get a part-time job to manage your deficit. It's not good to use your savings or credit lines, because that's unsustainable. Let's go back to savings. Emergencies, like I say, emergency funding, we usually fund 6 to 9 months. We need to fund more if we could afford it. The other thing is retirement. So in the US and in different places, we have retirement monies, 401ks, IRAs, different retirement instruments. Education, we also have different educational savings instruments in the US. And I'm sure your banks, if you're in the Caribbean, may have different funding. Investments, banks, CDs, money markets, different instruments. And I remember last year, I needed to go do some research on the instruments in the Caribbean for investments. Haven't been able to find exactly what I wanted. I actually approached a lecturer in KFL who was in the business area, and I said, tell me what's here. And instead of telling me what's there, he told me when I find it, I should share it with him. So not sure if that's going to happen, but I am going to find it. If anybody on the platform knows investment instruments by country in the Caribbean, please let me know. Please send me an email. I'll have my information at the end of this this discussion. So let's go to back to deficit funding, and I talk about credits. You can pull out the credit card and use credit for deficit funding, but here you have to manage your credit. We just talked about this lady, Junie, who was able to be debt-free. So manage your credit. So when we do this again, you can come up and wave your hand or send me an email and say, I am debt-free. So credit, we use credit for cars, for homes, credit cards, personal loans. Let's go back up to income and expense and the cash flow and join those two and get to our budget. As I said, you need to have your budget where you have your income and expenses. We usually put together our income and expense for 1 month, but then when you do a budget, you put together the income and expense for 3 to 6 months, have a roll in 3 to 6 months. So you have an outlook, what's coming up, what big bills are coming up, when you have tax payment, what's coming up and when. So you slot those things in and you have a picture of how your budget is going to look and how you're going to manage over 3 to 6 months. With the budget comes planning. Here's where you look at if you have something big you're planning for, retirement, a car, a house, education. Here's where planning comes in. This is going to be my approximate cost. How are you going to fund it? So you look at the source of funds and the uses of those funds. That stuff flows into the balance sheet, and the balance sheet really is important, and a lot of folks do not use the balance sheet, but the balance sheet shows you where your wealth is. It shows what's left over. It shows your assets and your liabilities, and the difference between your assets and your liabilities, that's your net worth. So I know this is something that you on the platform would be focusing on, not how much income comes in, but how much money stays after the expenses are paid, etc. So on the balance sheet, you would see that I took all of the orange lines that came from your savings and emergencies and investments, etc., emergency funding, etc. All the orange lines flow into assets. It's your retirement funds and your education funds, your investments, other, and your emergency funds. You keep them in different instruments, but they fall under your assets. On the liabilities, that red line here is all your debt. Whatever the source of the debt is, whether it's your car, your home, credit cards, personal loans. And as I said, assets minus liabilities equal to net worth. That's how much you're worth. How much money you have, real estate, cars, whatever. That's your net worth. So let's focus on net worth. For just as you focus on credit and all the other instruments, let's focus on net worth. So we're going to go to dialogue now. If you can raise your hand, and Karina would open your mic or write in the chat, and this is the dialogue portion of this discussion. If you want me to go over something else, something in more detail, just let me know. Now it's dialogue. And Karina, if we don't have anything in the chat, then we have some poll questions that we'd throw up. Questions? Hands raised? Okay, so
I'm not seeing any hands raised at the moment. I think they're still gathering their questions, but as I said, it's a dialogue, it's an open forum, so you can ask the questions that you'd like. If you need clarity on anything, advice, some direction on where you need to go, you need to share something, please feel free to do so in the chat. Raise your hand, open your mics, your cameras, whatever it may be. Stacia is here to answer your question. In the interim, you can focus on question 3, how big is your emergency fund? All right, we have Jarvis has the hand raised. So soon as we close this poll question, he could, or she, I'm not sure, I'm sorry, could open the mic and go ahead and ask your question or make a comment.
Thanks, Karina. So I see most people have 3 months of expenses. 60% has 3 months of expenses. Around 31% has 6 months, then we decreased to 2% for 9 months and 10% for over a year. So you're to be applauded because you have some months of expenses in case anything happens, and we know what's happening in the US economy and the world economy right now. So that's great.
Stacia, a quick question before we get to Jarvis. What if you don't have an emergency fund? Not a month, not 2, not 3, nothing. You know, because that's some person's reality. I know it's a little bit, you know, shocking to hear, but it's the reality for some person. So what do you do? What's the next step?
I agree that that's reality, Karina. And I hope that person or the persons, if hopefully have a job, or somebody in the household has a job, so there's somebody to buffer you during this time. And as I would throw out to everybody, in particular, everybody worldwide, we are on a platform, we're on a web platform, and there are lots of jobs, worldwide jobs that you can do from home. It may take a while to get something to do, but there are lots of things that you can do from home. So that's a desperate situation. I know that people in the US during the pandemic, there's unemployment funding. I know in the Caribbean, there's no such thing. So I really don't have an answer for that. I would just say, try to get out of the situation, look for jobs, talk to everybody, look at what's in your hands. I use that a lot, but look at what's in your hands that you can monetize. There's something you can monetize in your hand or in your head. So I say, go online, look at places that have consulting jobs, look at Fiverr and different platforms. Just go on, do a Google search and start looking. And reach out to everybody you know. Tell everybody you know that you're out of a job if you're out of a job and what you're looking for.
All right, so the best option is to just find an alternative source of income.
You have to, have to.
Okay.
Especially if you don't live in the US where there is unemployment monies for a certain amount of time.
Right. Okay. All right, Jarvis, you may go right ahead, open your mic and ask your question or make your comments.
Hi, good night, everyone. Can you hear me? Testing. I'm hoping you can hear me well.
Yes, perfectly.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My question is like, okay, where I'm at in life right now is that I'm comfortable. I have no debt, and I'm now starting to accumulate money and so forth. But it's like, what instruments that I can put my money so that it can grow. I know like the instrument that you're going to use is based on your financial goal at the point in time. But like when I look at inflation, for instance, it's really high, you know, and the ideal thing is that you would like to park your money in an instrument that kind of beats that level of inflation so that you could sort of like accumulate wealth over time. And so I don't know if you have any advice for that, especially in the Caribbean. I sort of kind of missed the part. I think you mentioned something about that, instruments in the Caribbean and so forth, but I'm really curious about that. Because it's like, hey, what's the best way to handle or manage this money instead of just leaving it in a bank with a mediocre interest rate that is, I'm basically losing out due to inflation?
So I would give you an answer. I try to give you an answer. Let's put it this way. I'd give you what I think is the best answer I can give you. I think the part that you missed is that my requests for instruments in the Caribbean, that I haven't gotten back that answer from UWI. So I'm still searching for that. If you were in the US, and before I go to what I suggest in the US and maybe what you can do where you are, where are you calling from?
Oh, I'm from Trinidad. From Trinidad today.
Okay, fine. So, okay. Usually when I get that question, as a financial advisor, you can't answer that question in a vacuum. You have to look at the person's risk profile. And I think you may be risk averse because you talk about what's happening in the economy. You may be risk averse. If you're risk averse, then you look towards things that are safe. You look for in a bank, and I usually start with a bank CDs because I know the banks have very low interest rates, but especially when you look at your expense and if you don't have much savings or funds for emergencies. Then you start with a bank CD, and you can ladder CDs. And for everybody, a CD is a certificate deposit that the bank, you can buy at a bank, put your money in the bank. The interest rate is not very high, and you're locked in for a certain period. So you may be locked in for 6 months or 9 months or 12 months. And I recommend people ladder CDs, because as they mature, you might need the money. So instead of taking all your money and putting a 2-year CD, I'd say put some in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and 2 years. So you see things, life happens, things happen. And then after CDs, I'd say look at fixed income stuff, look at mutual funds. You may be able to get mutual funds in your banks in the Caribbean. So look at mutual funds, because then mutual funds are safer than just going into the stock market or into the bond market, because a lot of people get into mutual funds. Mutual funds is a pooling of investments. So you go in the next step after CDs, mutual funds, and then you may want to go into bonds at this time. If you live in the US, there's treasury bonds, or you can buy a company's debt. For example, right now, oil and utility, those companies are doing really well. Oil, electricity, etc. They're doing really well. So maybe you'd look at bonds in that field, in that category, or stocks. But as I say, before I give you advice, I'd have to figure out your risk profile and when you need the money. So 2 things you do: risk profile and timing, and also age comes in when you need the money. So I hope I shed some light there in your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right, thank you for that, Jarvis and Stacia. All right, Kevin Ford has a question here. He's asking, does it make more sense to save versus, I guess, investing in a rental property or putting your money into a rental property?
I'm sorry to laugh, and I tell you guys why I'm laughing. My investment in rental properties did not work. So I would say don't go cold turkey into rental property unless you can manage it. If you're there to manage it, then I would say yes, rental property. Because especially today with savings and the low interest rate, as long as you can manage the property or get a property management firm to manage the property, then I'd say go into rental property. But in my case, the property wasn't where I live, so it didn't work out. It didn't.
All right, thank you. All right, Charmaine is saying that, this information is all new to her in terms of how in-depth the process is for being able to manage your finances. What would you have to say to that, Stacia? I mean, Charmaine, you can always contact Stacia if you need more, I would say, guidance, right? She's always accommodating. But what would you say, to persons who didn't really know that it's really an in-depth process in terms of being able to manage your finances and manage them well?
So that makes sense for people like me who get onto your platform, Karina, and maybe she would vote at the end to have the 4-week session, and we can probably try to do that again, because that was very successful and it's all structured already. So it's not going to take much of my time to just flip the switch. Yes, it's an in-depth process. And what's sad is that a lot of people like me who have all the education, been through the schooling, do the jobs for other companies for your job, and you don't bring it home to yourself. So I would say start to educate yourself. There are lots of and UWI has been doing a good job. Karina and team and Celia and team have been doing a good job. There are lots of webinars. There's a wealth of education out there. So I would say educate yourself, and we can talk. If everybody on the platform, most people say let's do the 4-week again. If not the 4-week, we can do another session where I go into more detail. I pick some topics and just go into more detail. But today really is to review and dialogue. So I'm really glad that you need the education. So answer the poll at the end and leave it up to Karina to get it done. Okay?
All right. And Carissa is asking, what is your advice for clearing credit card debts? Is it advisable to take a loan to pay off or continue to do monthly payments? I think this is a stickler for a lot of persons. So
So it so happens that I read an article today on consolidating that credit card debt. And I'm not sure if the question comes from the US or the Caribbean. In the US, you most likely can consolidate credit card debt into another credit card. A lot of companies offer zero interest for a certain amount of time. If you consolidate like that, then you have to be very diligent and manage to the time and not say, okay, my debt is all paid off, let me go start up some more debt. I recently mentored a woman who had literally $100,000 in credit card debt. Not school loans or car or house, credit card debt. She was in such really bad straits. I mentored her to work with a credit counselor. And this is how credit counselors would work. They would recommend that you not pay your credit cards for 3 months, so that they would go to the company and say to the company, this debt is in default, and they would buy the debt out for, say, 40 cents on the dollar. And when they have bought the debt out and bought down a lower payment amount for the person would pay to the debt consolidator. But meanwhile, your credit rating is all screwed up because you did not pay your bills for 3 months. But that, in this case, for this woman, that was her only option. She didn't have enough money to make her monthly payments. So in this case, if you have enough money to make your monthly payments, I would say make your monthly payments and go find a part-time job or something targeted to paying down the debt. And there's two schools of thoughts here. You pay down the lower debt amount first and do it like that. The smaller, when that's paid off, go to the next smaller, then etc. Another school of thought is paying the big debt first. Personally, I prefer to pay the small debt because you get that psychological boost. You feel good, you've done something, you can mark that off, you can cut up the card and send it back. And I prefer that way. So I'd say keep paying, but try to pay more. You can choose the higher debt amount or the lower debt amount based on your preference.
All right, thank you. And I think we spoke on this a little bit. Daniel said he has less than 3 months of emergency fund, and that's a reality for a lot of persons. And you recommended that, you know, an alternative or a second source of income, or second or third source of income would be good to get that going. So persons are also requesting, you know, webinars on ways to find employment outside of the traditional 9 to 5. So that's something we're going to be looking into as well. But moving on to the next question, is the emergency fund based on your gross salary or net salary, what you get in hand?
I would say it's neither. It's based on your expenses. So if you have, based on your monthly expense, if you say you have 9 months of emergency funding, then you have 9 months of funding your expenses.
Even if you don't have a salary or a source of income, you should be okay for that 9 months.
Yes.
Okay.
And during that 9 months or 6 months, you spin yourself, go crazy, touch everybody, look for jobs, etc. But don't wait until the 6 months are done. Start immediately, but have that funding amount for emergencies.
Okay, so the emergency fund is based on your expenses.
Yes.
Not your salary.
Not your salary.
All right. I'm sorry to hear that, Crystal. Crystal is saying that she has less than 3 months of emergency fund because she had an unexpected surgery that wiped her out last year. And I mean, this is a reality for a lot of persons. Emergency that comes up, the unexpected thing that can take everything that you've been saving. So the recommendation or the suggestion here is to build it back, Stacia, and to build it back how?
Build it back as quickly as you can, but let me make a distinction between emergency funds and savings. Emergency funds is not your savings. Could be you save it in a separate account, most probably, and I would recommend a separate account for your emergency fund. but that's separate from your monthly savings. I usually recommend that you have that emergency fund saved and set aside and locked away if you could. And then you have your regular savings that you put in a savings account. So your emergency funds shouldn't be your savings. It could be when you get to it, when you have, nothing else but that emergency fund. But I just want to make a differentiation between emergency funds and your savings. And I'm sorry to hear, and that's a lot of what we all face, is that emergency fund and your savings can be wiped out by health situations.
Okay.
So just pray that we all stay healthy, and the opportunities for when one door closes, you find another door, or as in the case of this lady I just mentioned, look at what you can open. Look at what your options are. Maybe you can become an editor for somebody. Maybe you can, look at your options.
Right. Daphne is asking, what type of savings gives you the best return on investment?
Right now, the only savings that give you the best return are certificates of deposit, because the normal savings accounts, the interest rate is really minimal. But once you buy a certificate of deposit, then you're locked in to that 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months, as I just mentioned, and that interest rate is higher. So I'd say save your accounts, save. First of all, emergency fund, save for your emergency fund, then save. When your savings get to a certain amount, then you open certificates of deposits. And then after that, when you have a certain amount based on what your goals are, then you go into maybe mutual funds. But there's a laddering of what you should do when. So maybe, Karina, that's something else we can take aside when I get my research done on Caribbean investment instruments. Then we probably can just have a discussion on that.
Yes, most definitely. And Kevin was asking a similar question to what was asked before about the emergency fund, if it's gross or after taxes, and you made a clarification that it's really based on your expenses, not what you earn. You should be able to cover your expenses for 6 to 9 months based on what you have in that fund, right?
Yes,
okay.
Correct.
All right, Kevin, that is for you. And we're moving on. Candice, she's asking specifically about investment in Trinidad. I think that would be a side question, something that would require research. But the question is, what avenues do we have in Trinidad to invest in the S&P 500 and retirement? I'm not sure you'd be able to.
Karina, I'm going to tap my Trinidadian focus group people to answer that question.
Okay. All right, Candice. So we'll get right back to you with that, since it's so specific to one country.
But I still want to go across countries. So I have a couple of focus group people in different countries. So I'd start tapping them for this information. Right.
And Daphne was just trying to clarify, the CD is like a time deposit?
Yes.
Okay.
So you get a deposit by months, months or years. And the interest rate gets higher the longer the money is tied up at the bank.
All right. I'm just checking the chat to see if there are any more questions.
If not, we can do another.
So Nicole was asking if you know of, or if there exist any apps that are, able to keep track of budgeting and keeping track of income and expenses, debt savings, everything that you did a rundown of. If you know of any apps.
Yeah, there are lots of apps out there, and I actually had some, but I don't have it on my desk in front of me. But there's a lot of apps out there. I don't have it in front of me. But do a Google. There are lots of apps, or if you're like me, ages ago, I implemented my own income and expense, etc. years before apps. So I developed a spreadsheet. I did an Excel spreadsheet. So my Excel spreadsheet has my income and expense, and then it has the columns for 6 months out. And it just doesn't do my balance sheet because I don't get that view. But I can get that view. But there are things out there, and maybe Karina, I can send that for you, and you can just shoot it out to everybody in this who came to this. So I'd send some.
Yes, definitely. So if you're interested in getting access to the apps, you can definitely send us an email. I'll type my email in the chat and we'll do some research, and then we'll definitely communicate the apps that you possibly can use. And we're hoping that these are also free, because a lot of these apps, you know, have the habit of charging you.
There are lots of banks too. There, I could off the top of my head, there is mint.com. That's one website, but there are lots of, I think Mint, and there's bank rate. But I have an article on that which I can just shoot out to Karina pretty quickly.
Okay, so that's mint.com. But if you're looking for something right now that is, I would say, you know, quite easy to use, Excel is recommended.
Yes, yeah. Well, old school. I have control of that.
Right.
Yeah. And you could I customize that. Yeah.
Kathy Ann was asking, what are your thoughts on mutual funds as an investment instrument?
I think it's one of the best instruments once you have done the laddering, as I said, the emergency fund, the savings, the CDs. Then the next thing is mutual fund, because your risk there in mutual funds, your risk is lower than if you go straight into the stock market or into the bond market. Because a mutual fund is, you have a mutual fund that's a piece of a share of a company, and you share that with lots of people. So it's not your risk only. So the risk is less for mutual funds. So I'm a proponent of mutual funds.
All right, thank you. Getting to you, online accounts in Jamaica. Your hand raised, we'll get to you shortly. I see you have some questions in the chat, but I'll also give you the opportunity to say those when you're asked to open your mic. But in the meantime, Kevin was asking, is FX trading a good investment indoor, in your opinion?
It depends on your risk profile, the amount of money you have, when you need your money, and it's heavily based on your risk profile. So that's an answer that's not an answer. And I wouldn't give you an answer on this about FX trading. No. You sit down with an advisor and they do your risk profile when you need the money, and they may advise you.
Okay. And Candice did share some apps, some tracking apps in the chat, so persons who are interested can go there. She mentioned Mint, EveryDollar, and YNAB for now.
Okay.
E2. All right, so E2 will have the recording on our YouTube channel, UWI Alumni Online, by Friday of this week. There you'll be able to get a recap of what was covered in the first 30 minutes. All right, but if you have any questions, you can shoot it to us and we'll connect it to Stacia, as well as her email will be at the end of the presentation slide.
Okay.
All right, someone asked, and Herman is asking, do you have any recommendations regarding the traditional, I would say I'd pronounce it susu, you know, in different Caribbean countries, they call it different things. Some people say partner, some people say, I guess, Ponzi scheme, but he's referring to the susu, which we know.
I know the susu.
Yes.
So my perspective on that,
right.
I haven't really thought about that in a long time. I would say it's a nice, easy, but you have to trust the people. You have to trust the people, because some people may get the first pool or whatever and disappear. So you have to trust the people that you're in a susu hand with. So when it comes around, you get yours. But I know lots of people who do this, and it's really a nice informal way of getting a bulk set of money to do something. When you get it, you either pay off some credit cards, pay down the debt or something. So yeah, I say if you have some trusted folks and you have extra money, by all means, go do it. I
agree. I mean, it's good if you're not a disciplined saver. At least this is a structured way to know that you're putting this money and you're going to get back some returns. But again, it's really based on trust. You know, that element of trust is very important when it comes to susu or partners, we call it in Jamaica. But yes. And Kathy Ann said, thank you. Let's moving on. And Jarvis was also recommended that why NAB, you need a budget, is a budgeting app. It's very popular, he said, but it's not free. As I was mentioning, a lot of these people will charge you. But there's a 30-day free trial, so you can check it out. Maybe you get some tips from that 30-day free trial that you can implement into possibly a free thing like an Excel spreadsheet. So
yeah, I would say I'd say go free first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for using free things, free instruments and anything free before you pay and buy. And budgeting is so easy. Once you get the structure, if you're spreadsheet oriented, do a spreadsheet. The youths that I mentor, I usually start them off with a spreadsheet that I keep.
Yeah, alrighty. And before, that's the end of the questions, but we're gonna take a question from Online Counseling Jamaica. If you are still here with us, you may open your mic, ask your question, or make your comments.
Yes, thanks. I'm just asking if we have debt consolidators in the Caribbean, particularly Jamaica, because I have never found any to help my clients. And also if we have access within the Caribbean institutions to invest in gold.
To be determined, I can't answer that question.
Which of them?
Both of them.
Okay.
You asked about debt consolidation and gold.
Right.
So
okay.
we can keep those questions.
All right, Lo. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I'm seeing one last thing in the chat here. Let me just see. And Nandy's asked me if you have a template of a budget plan that could be shared.
Yes, I do.
All right, Nandi, so there is one. Just please send an email or whoever is interested, and Stacia will either share with me or I'll forward the email to her and she will share it with you directly. I'm going to be sharing the email in the chat, but it is karina.dice@alumni.ue.edu, and Stacia's email will also be on the final slide of the presentation. Kevin is also interested in that. I'm also interested, I'm not going to lie. I've been to all of the webinars, I've been to the 4-week thing, but I can say, I'm guilty of not following through. So I'm going to be following that 10, it was 10 commandments, 10.
Okay,
10,
yes.
Right.
10 commitments.
10 commitments.
Yes.
Right. So I think we all need to do that if we intend to be financially free in 2023, right?
And make financial wellness a habit.
And make
so
that
if we have no other questions, Karina, could we pull up some polls, please?
Sure. So we're going to go to poll 4, and that is, do you expect to be financially better in 2023? And someone is asking if you could share the screen with the 10 commitments.
Okay. Again. I'll go back to that. So most people are optimistic, which is good. Most people say yes. Okay. And then poll 5, please.
Poll number 5, 1 second. So we have 90% of persons optimistic. Great. And poll 5 is, what change will you make in 2023 to ensure that you're going to be financially well-free?
Decrease spending, increase emergency fund, increase savings, and get a side hustle. Okay, good. Most people are going to decrease spending and increase savings. Those two seem to be the two top answers. Okay, and let's do the last poll. Karina, poll number 6.
Right. And the final poll is, should we offer the 4-week in-depth course again? And just so you know, guys, because we're all family here, we're an alumni family, the course is offered for free.
Okay, so we got some yeses. We got a resounding yes. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the commitments and then I come back to, so thank you very much. The dialogue was good. Dialogue was good.
I agree.
So, commitments. Okay. Financially literate, and to be literate and financially well, we're gonna move towards literacy and financial wellness. I'll get with Karina and we see what the dates could be for the next 4 weeks. And usually I said 4 weeks, but it's one session per week, 1 hour, but we send out the homework and we send out a playbook. So you download the playbook and you do your homework and come with questions and answers. And it's really a sit-down, hands-on work session over 4 weeks, 4 consecutive weeks, unless we have to change. So we develop the playbook, as I said, write down, quantify your goals, develop a roadmap. The roadmap is how to get to endgame, budget, save consistently, prioritize spending, like don't spend for the sake of spending, know why you're spending. Manage your credit, know your credit score, build wealth, understand the financial concepts and instruments, and invest early. Those are your commitments. So on that, we did all the poll, we talked about Junie. I did this, walk you through that. Challenges, understand your assets, finances, source of income, investment, vehicles. We'd go back and I'll be sure to get some answers on the vehicles. Manage your cash flows. So I'd say manage what you can control. Your cash flow, your savings, emergency, education, retirement, credit, budget. Try and build wealth and set goals. Be the CEO of your household, make this a habit. And to bring the goals down in layman's language, monitor that cash flow, meet your monthly bills, pay down debt, have excellent credit, save, pay down, pay off mortgage if you can, cash reserves, pay for vehicles, and determine and manage your net worth. So here I have a course for somebody who asks a question. I have an online course that we built out before we offered this class. And I have a code if you want it. You can take a picture of the screen. It's called the CEO of your household. And that's the address. And I have a code, a discount code tonight called UWI-2023. So you can either go that way or you can wait until we do the 4-week session. So it's up to you. And you can always Google. So if you have taken that picture of that, I want to say thank you very much. This was very interesting. We haven't done a dialogue like this before, and this was really good. Usually I would stand up and talk. I think I love sharing the platform with everybody who wants to talk. I know I have some siblings and friends on listening in and they might not agree, but I'm putting it out there. I like to share and have somebody else talk. So that's me, yourlifetrack.com or Yahoo, and you can go to my website.
All right, thank you so much, Stacia, as always. But before you slip off, Nicole is asking, what is SIP? You never heard the term before. Do you know of that?
SIT?
SIP, SIP.
SIP.
S as in Sam, I as in Igloo, P as in Paul.
And what is it a financial instrument?
I'm not sure. I guess Nicole, you'd have to just send us a message via email and we can get an understanding of what that SIP is that you're referring to. I'm not sure if it's a type or anything.
Or let me know if it's a financial instrument, but I
or a financial instrument,
yes.
Right? And someone was just asking quickly, what about the magic of passive income?
And you know, I was on a platform recently and somebody asked about that. Yes, passive income. The best, well, there are lots of ways of having passive income. If you have passive income, that's great. That's really great. So passive income can come from your investments and the whatever you get from your investments, dividends or whatever you get from investment. If you have a trust fund, and I think most of us from the Caribbean sector don't have trust funds, but if you have a fund and you get income from that fund, that's all passive income. Passive income is also rentals. If you don't participate in the management of your rental property, it just happens, that's passive income. So passive income is great. Passive income is great if you don't have to work for that income. You inherit some money or whatever. but I love passive income. I just don't have passive income.
Exactly. Who wouldn't love it? All right, Maxine, we're also time to share the commitments again, but as I said, that the recording will be available. You can either email me to get a copy, or you can go to the YouTube channel by the end of this week and you'll have the full presentation, the full recording, and you can access the commitments at any time there.
Okay, you can also take a picture of the, I just
All right,
had it
she's
back.
a ship, right? It's on screen now, so you can also take a picture. Nicole said SIPs has something to do with calculating, so I'm sure we'll do some more research and get back to her on that.
Okay.
Right, but thank you everyone for your time. The feedback in the chat is just great. Stacia, everyone is thanking you for the information and thank you for your time that you shared. I know this is refreshing for all of us who, we really want to be on track for 2023, and sometimes we just need that little push, and so we're thankful for that. As mentioned, we're going to be coming out with the 4-week webinar course / we'll call it a dialogue to make it more interactive. So stay tuned for that information. So we will get back to you with that detail via email, as we always do. Thank you again for being with us tonight. And thank you, Stacia, for always, sparing the time to be with us and to share this wealth of knowledge. And we look forward to further engagements with you. Thank you for everyone who helped to organize and support. And we will definitely see you again online. Share with your friends, your colleagues, your family members, whoever needs financial wellness literacy information, because we all need it at some point in our life. And it's important for all of us to move to that, especially in this economy where inflation is such a real and horrible threat. So have a good night, everyone, and we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for listening and for participation. And let's go do it. Let's be financially well and make financial wellness a habit. So when you go and want to spend that extra and pull out that credit card, I'd like you to hear my voice in your head saying, don't. Okay, manage. Good night.
Good night.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Okay.
Bye, and thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Okay, good night, Karina. Thanks out to all my
good
friends.
night, good night.
Who listened in. Okay.
Bye.